Week 9 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few wide receivers I looked at off the wire this week. The first receiver, Kayshon Boutte of the New England Patriots. Kayshon Boutte, he's been on this list a decent amount this season. I know the volume and targets aren't great for him, but it seems like weekly he's been finding the end zone of late. And someone to keep an eye on. So 3 games in a row with double-digit fantasy points. Week 6 in New Orleans, 5 catches, 93 yards, 2 TDs, 5 targets. Week 7 at Tennessee, 2 for 55 and a touchdown, 2 targets. In Week 8 versus the Browns, 3 catches, 75 yards, and found the end zone. So Boutte out there in 60% of fantasy leagues. He's going out there making plays for New England. Drake May, a young quarterback, but already one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And a guy who's getting all his receivers and playmakers of football. So with all those factors, Boutte's playing well for this New England Patriot team. And out there, like I said, in 60% of fantasy leagues. Next receiver, Troy Franklin of the Denver Broncos. So Troy Franklin, he had a plus matchup and he took advantage of it with arguably the best game of his NFL career in Week 8 versus the Dallas Cowboys, where they can't stop anyone. So the last few weeks, Week 6, at the Jets, to carry 2 rush yards, 3 catches, 19 yards, a fumble loss. Week 7 versus the Giants, 3 catches, 19 yards, a touchdown. And Week 8 versus Dallas, like I said, a big game, and he dropped a couple balls, 6 catches, 89 yards, 2 TDs on 8 targets. So Week 9, not a great matchup on Houston, believe it or not. 4th least amount of fantasy points to receivers on the year. But Troy Franklin, the last couple weeks, he's finding it for this Denver Bronco team. He's getting one-on-one coverage, obviously, as well, where tension's rolling to Sutton and even Evan Ingram. So with those factors, I still think Franklin could go out there, make plays, and him and Bo Nix this season been locked in a little bit more. And he's an ad this week is Troy Franklin. Next squad receiver, Trey Tucker of the Las Vegas Raiders. Trey Tucker and the Raiders, they were off this week. I thought he's been decent and their most consistent option in the offense. We know Brock Bowers, he's been hurt pretty much the whole season for this Vegas Raider team. The run game with Ginty hasn't been great, and they're another team trailing a lot more weeks than not. So the last few weeks for Trey Tucker, it's been okay performances. Week 5 in Indianapolis, a carry, 9 yards, 4 catches, 62 yards. Week 6 versus Tennessee, 5 catches for 70 yards. And Week 7 at Kansas City, 5 catches, 33 yards in the blowout loss. So Week 9, they'll be back after the bye week. Now, he's this Las Vegas Raider team, and it's a good matchup versus the Jaguars that give up the 7th most fantasy points to receivers on the season. Next receiver, Christian Watson of the Green Bay Packers. Christian Watson returned to the lineup, and we know he's been an injury-prone receiver throughout his NFL career as Christian Watson, but in his return to the lineup, he had a solid performance at Pittsburgh, 4 catches, 85 yards. So another good weapon added to the offense for Jordan Love. Jordan Love likes airing it out, and Christian Watson, we saw a few years ago, he was putting up big numbers, and he was a home run hitter at the wide receiver position with Aaron Rodgers as well. They were hitting on big plays as Christian Watson. So we'll see if Watson's 100%. He looked good, like I said, with Pittsburgh. Him and Jordan Love locked in. They haven't missed a beat. We'll see if Christian Watson, he could be healthy and stay on the field for this Packer team for the remainder of the season. So definitely someone to add this week. And like I said, he's out there in tons of leagues right now, in 84% of fantasy leagues. Next receiver, Chimia DK of the Tennessee Titans. So DK, the last couple weeks, he's been playing good football for Tennessee. Calvin Ridley, he's been banged up and out, obviously. The running game hasn't done much. And even at tight end, and Kwong will have a decent game here and there. So with those factors, DK out there in tons of leagues right now in 92%. And 2 weeks in a row, he's gone out there with double-digit fantasy points since he's got more of a role with the Ridley injury. And obviously, Tyler Lockett getting his release. Week 7 versus New England, 4 catches, 70 yards, a touchdown, a carry, -1 yards. In Week 8 in Indianapolis, the nice game, 7 catches, 93 yards on 8 targets, and a rush attempt for 1 yard. So Week 9, a matchup versus Chargers. Their secondary has been hit or miss so far this season, but we know Tennessee, one of the worst teams in the league, and right now DK possibly could go out there and have a good ball game in a matchup where they're going to be chasing points versus the Chargers, and he's available in 92% of fantasy leagues. And the final receiver, Xavier Hutchinson of the Houston Texans. We know Nico Collins missed a game with a concussion. We'll see if he'll be back. Week 9 matchup versus Denver Bronco team for Houston. So Denver, great defense, one of the best in the league. But Hutchinson this season starting to get things going a little bit. Week 5 at Baltimore, 3 catches, 18 yards, 2 touchdowns. Week 7 at Seattle, and I want to catch 13 yards. In Week 8, 5 catches, 69 yards, and a touchdown. So him and Stroud are starting to get things going. We saw Jaden Higgins find the end zone as well for this Houston Texan team. But I still think this offense is inconsistent. And like you said, when Nico Collins comes back, he's going to be the top guy in this receiving room for this Houston Texan team. So that's a few wide receivers I looked at off the wire for week 9 of the fantasy football season.